Well, the old adage goes that good fences make good neighbors. Well, I like good fences, but I also like being able to get in and out when I want to. So with that comes gates. And that's what we're working on today, if the rain will stop. Been talking about it for years. Going to finally put some gates in down below down here. I've had a logging chain across and the old wooden posts have rotted out. So I've caught one with a snow plow every winter basically. So today I'm working on some gates. I've got 6x6 1/4 inch wall tube steel laying here in 7-foot sections. Some 1/2 inch plates that are cut 18 by 18 with pretty much 3/4 inch holes bored in them. If you talk to your local welding shops or local steel supply, they'll probably set you up with some remnants, drops as they call them. And that's how I ended up with that 1/2 inch plate, and that's pretty good stuff. It's quite costly, but they had a 3-foot by 4-foot square that I was able to get for about $100 and get some pads cut out of it. So if the rain will let up, we'll get down there. I've already got the welding trailer moved down below, and we'll get started on hanging some gates. I used to build gates out of tube steel, but it's terribly costly, and quite honestly I can't afford it right now, so we're going to go with the steel upright pillars. They're going to last a whole lot longer than wood, and hopefully have myself a rock solid gate system set in before the snow flies. Case in point, I live on a piece of property that's landlocked by state game lands. And here in Wyoming, state game lands, it's a common misconception, but a lot of people from out of town think that they can camp on state game lands. Last night as I was coming home, I find 4 different outfits parked down there trying to camp at night. Wyoming regulations, you look them up for yourself. Game lands, state game lands, or what they call school plots, are leased to the ranchers, and the ranchers then pretty much dictate what happens on those lands within some parameters. The state will not post them with signs, but it's your responsibility to find out whether you can camp there or not. And according to the penal code, you can't camp there. They're day use only. Hunting, fishing, target practice, etc. You can walk on them as long as it's daylight or just within daylight hours. You cannot erect a domicile such as a tent or park your camper on them. So, case in point, the reason I'm a little anal about it is because my land borders it. As you can see right down here just below where my welding trailer is, or let me pan the camera around and I'll show you where my actual line is. Right down here below my equipment is my actual property line. Like I said, it's a weird shaped piece of property, and the guys that originally built the house put everything on this corner. So I'm kind of locked in. Everything below here is all state game lands, which is leased to a rancher up the road. So he grazes it, farms it, etc. as long as he holds that lease. But what I have a problem with is boondockers. Down here at the pond, which looks like a good long ways away, but it's actually not. It's maybe a quarter, if that, quarter mile, maybe 3/8 of a mile. Down there, the county road runs just on the other side of it. And that's where these people like to try to camp. They also try to camp up here in the corner, which I can see on this knoll just across the little stream bed. Here in the west, you've seen the wildfires in California. If something gets started out there, it's going to be at my doorstep before any fire department can come through. I am a professional wildland firefighter. I'm one guy. I can't stop it before it takes out my house. That's why I put mitigation here, and I mow as far as I can on the house and the boundaries of the property. I clean out my underbrush, but if something gets rocking, there's only so much I can do before I need a truck, water, and a whole lot of other friends out here helping me. And I don't have that kind of time if a boondocker gets things going down there. So, either way, I need some gates. I digress. We'll get started on the gates as soon as it quits raining here. Alright, so the rain finally subsided. Now I'm just left with the wind, so if the audio is messed up, please forgive me on that one. What I've got going on here is I've got concrete bases that are about 22 by 22 and about 4 inches thick, but the circular portion goes about 4 feet into the ground and rebar reinforced. They were actually pylons for an old trailer house. I picked them up at an auction some years ago for about 50 bucks for the pile of them. I've used 2 of them here, I've given a couple away, and I've still got about 35, 40 of these things left. I can't get rid of them. So, steel plates are sitting on top. We're going to drill in these concrete anchors, set them in. These are the wedge style anchors, so they got a little ring that you can beat on the end of them. They set this ring in real good, and it's really tough to pull back out, but we're going to back that up with a little bit of construction concrete adhesive, like a epoxy base. We're going to set them in with that too. On top of that, big post, you're going to get these big bolts running through that the actual gate is going to pivot on. I do this because one nut and washer can back up to this side, the other one goes on the other side of the post, and I can actually bring this thing in and out to set the height of my gate on the very far end, on the fall end. These manufactured gates, these green ones, there's one laying over there, and I'll show you the other one in a second here. The tolerances around the hinge pin are not what I would really want. So, I'm going to get some measurements. The gates are 11 foot 7 across from the hinge all the way out. I need to account for about an extra 1.5 inches here. So overall, I'm going to need about 23 feet and about 8 inches. So that's what I'm lining up right now. Make some marks on these, load everything back up, take it up to the house, do a nice pretty job with the MIG welder. Alright, here's one of the actual bases that I got going on here, and this one's a little beat up because I caught it with a snowplow last winter. Hence, it's time to get some posts up here and get things done right, so I'll quit hitting it with a snowplow. So, yeah, moving the post in and out, seeing where I want to set it, and we'll get some welds or some marks in there, and then get some welds in there. Well, in the course of all this, the camera's fallen over, so I believe I have a scratch in my lens. I had one corner crack out on me, but I'm using nuts underneath here to balance this out. From the time that I set these in the ground, they've shifted over the winter and they're no longer level. I did level them back last summer when I set them in here, but of course with snow and freeze and heave and haul and everything, they're no longer level. Poster as close to level as I can get. Now we got to bore the holes through to get the big 1-inch pins through for the to hang the gates on. So. Well, there we go. I didn't intend on doing as much adjustment on the left side as I did, but being that these bases have moved around so much, I guess it's pretty much par for the course. And with the wind in Wyoming, my string level probably didn't go quite as well as I'd planned, but I ain't gonna have to worry about these coming out of the ground. As soon as the squash down factor happens, it'll probably tweak a little bit more and come together more in the middle as they come down. The one on the right is actually somewhat level, real close to level. The one on the left, it doesn't look quite great, but we'll work with it, we'll live with it. Here's what I came up with the tops. Basically I'm going to cut into triangles and work them in. Come in and cut the bases off here in a second. Cut them off about 2 inches below, take them up to the house, MIG them up, and then wrap another chunk around it so it'll make an actual cap that you can knock on and off. So, but here's how we did it. Basically I dropped down 5 inches because the tubing is 6. Measured off 3 inches in the middle and started making diagonal cuts. Now I come through with a side grinder and I cut all these little corners out and leaving the actual main section. This is 1/4 inch steel, so it's a little tough to beat in. So to do that, I make the cuts in the corners here extra big, then make a scab line across through here, and that'll help to bend that section in. Alright, in the course of cutting the tops of the posts off and tapering these flares in, the wonderful Wyoming wind picked up the camera, tossed it over into the gate, and smashed the lens. So now we've got my wife's Nikon D90 sitting on a tripod here in the garage. So I'm sorry I couldn't bring you along for the rest of what was happening down below at the gates, but the end result is the same. This is what we cut off the top of the post. It's crude, but without having the rest of the post here, I couldn't smash these tops in without a lot of heating and various other trouble down on the bottom. So once we got it up here, I went in and welded this one here up, and then I dropped down 1 inch and cut all the way around, cutting the entire top off. Now this is how you're going to make the cap. I thought initially about putting a plate around through here, but it's going to catch water and eventually start rusting. So once I cut it off, here's where we're at. Remember the little chunks we cut out of the corners up here? Here they are. Welded them just inside. It makes a pretty decent little cap to slide right on. Now, your choice whether you want to hard weld this in later on, or like myself, I don't know if I'm going to be filling those posts with concrete. So basically just making a cap that'll set on top is probably my best option. A little bit of paint, maybe a little silicone when you drop it in there, and it's sealed up and good to go. That way, just in case you need an escape route, you can get back into that post later on, fill it with concrete or whatever structural reinforcement you want to do. So, anyways guys, I'm going to finish this one here up and go slap them back on the posts. And until next time, take care.